Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Thursday morning to you all. I hope you guys are doing well out there this morning and having a great start to that Thursday and a great week out there so far. Here to give you some update information about what's going to happen weather-wise between now and the next day or so. We'll do that for you folks. We'll get detailed on the continued flooding risk across the south. We'll have a little bit of a severe weather risk for today also. We'll speak on that. We'll talk about a little bit of winter weather that's heading out of the northeast now, and rain also. I think rain will continue throughout most of the day for areas of like southern New England, just the northeast in general, but there'll be another round of winter weather for areas of like Maine as we get into tomorrow and the next day. So we'll speak on that. So we'll extend a little bit past our Thursday into our Friday night. And we'll talk about everybody else too. We'll talk about the West. Not a whole lot going on out there. Nothing unusual, I guess I would say. So we'll speak on all that. And then stay tuned for basically the entire second half of the video. We'll give you some updated information on the severe weather risk for our Saturday. We won't get super detailed on it like we did in last night's video, but we'll give you the updated information as far as what's the risk level is. Has it increased? Has it decreased? And we'll talk a little bit about that. We'll give you a pretty big update on this winter storm threat for the Northeast. Could get some snow also into the upper mid-Atlantic region. So we'll talk with details on that. And then we will kind of go over some new information we are seeing as far as the long range. Now, I wouldn't call this new information I'll talk on a change. But, I'll kind of show you kind of the overnight and this morning's model guidance that kind of backs up what we talked about in yesterday evening's video. We spoke on a ton on my thinkings of like February. All right, we know the rest of this week into this weekend is going to be pretty warm. There could be another warm up into February, but there's things we're starting to see. Now, everything that I show you before we get going is not a forecast, folks, but it does fit a signal for what we call cold air damming that I'm seeing, and just a signal in general for maybe some mischief. So we'll speak on that. I think you'll find that portion of the video very interesting, certainly if you're a winter weather fan across the East. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like, and if anybody has anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put those in the comments below. Let's get rocking and rolling. So the continued theme of a lot of rain falling across the south, man, has it been just damp and wet. It's not just been like rain in the 50s and 60s. It's been rain in the 50s and 60s and even 70s with high humidity for January standards. It's been 64 degrees with a dew point of 64 degrees at my house for like the last 24 hours. A dew point in the mid 60s in January. It's pretty humid. So everything's damp out there. And yeah, we continue to just see a lot of that, a lot of rain across the south, even some storms that are making its way through Louisiana and some heavy areas of rain across the deep south. We do have some moisture out west, not a huge deal, nothing totally unusual at all, not even really prompting any kind of warnings, advisories, or anything like that. Some rain is falling across the I-95 corridor and the big cities of the I-95 corridor. And then some wintry weather is starting to exit Maine, starting to move into New Brunswick and even sections of Nova Scotia. But even like Nova Scotia, it's too warm in areas for any wintry weather. So that's pretty wild to see this time of the year. But here we are. And then I do expect more wintry weather to move in and more rain to move in across areas of the Northeast here in the next 12 to 24 hours. So that's what's going on right now. The middle of the country and, like the Eastern Rockies, pretty quiet out there. Talk about the chance for severe weather. There's just a marginal risk. There's been no upgrade as of right now to a slight risk, and I don't anticipate one either. But in the dark green, you have a level 1 out of 5 risk of severe weather, a marginal risk. And there's a 2% risk of a tornado within 25 miles in a given location. Some of the ingredients support this, but I don't expect today to be a big day of severe weather at all. Yesterday we had a slight risk and it didn't really materialize really at all. So I think flooding risk will actually be more of a bigger deal in these areas, but there is that 2% risk of a tornado from, New Orleans up to Birmingham, down to Mobile, all the way to Columbus, almost to Atlanta. So definitely be weather aware for that. Excessive rainfall outlook, there has been no upgrade to a moderate risk, so that's good. So we're still at a slight risk. Not a whole lot's changed from last night's video when we discussed this. Slight risk means at least a 15% risk of rainfall exceeding flash flood guidance within 25 miles at any given point. So we do need to be aware of just some flooding in certain areas. We've already seen across like Louisiana, southern Mississippi, overnight last night, really yesterday afternoon, yesterday evening. Watches, warnings, advisories. Once again, just a ton of fog out there across the country. I mean, we got just whole states that are covered with dense fog advisories. So, this has been the theme. Typically, when you get a lot of warm air, especially when you got warm air over snowpack, and we're probably getting a lot of melting of this snowpack. Like in Iowa, it's probably taking a big hit in just areas of the country with all this warm air ridge building in. And so, when you got warm, moist air that clashes up against that cold air, then you typically get a lot of fog. And that is the case this morning, has been the case over the last 24 hours. Flood watches continue in the green. They have been opened up here in West Virginia now, also a couple counties in western Maryland and even southeast Ohio. So we are anticipating, even Rhode Island, has a I almost always want to call it flash flood watches, but flood watches. So we'll see if these get extended into the Western Carolinas as we move into the next 12 to 24 hours. I anticipate they will, but we'll watch for that. Let's talk about the Southeast first. So storms will continue to make their way through Louisiana. I think we'll get a break in Louisiana, especially everybody except Southeast Louisiana as we get later into the morning hours. A low kind of flies over the Mississippi Delta region. We got rain falling and moving back into areas of Kentucky. It's raining in Tennessee. You got some heavier rain in the Southern Alps region, North Georgia, upstate South Carolina, Western North Carolina. And these are some heavier storms. This is where we watch out for our tornado threats. Some big-time storms. I got to stop saying that. Probably not big-time storms, but definitely some storm action starts to move through Mississippi, starts to enter Alabama at around lunchtime today. So obviously it'll probably work west to east. These storms will move through. You could get some storms into the Nashville area later this afternoon, right after lunchtime. Storms could make their way through Birmingham, Huntsville. And these storms down here, don't have as much of a push in the atmosphere to really push these more so quickly west to east. So they'll kind of linger over the bayou of Louisiana, dump a lot of rain, some storm action, and there will be a tornado threat. And this will continue. And then I think this line will break up. We'll kind of leave this area behind somewhat. And then we'll get some heavy rain into the mountains of the Southern Alps a little bit later this evening. And then we'll get some scattered downpours across Georgia and northern Florida, even all the way up into Virginia as we get into this evening. And then a little bit of a kind of a lull tonight. Not a whole lot going on. And then we'll see if more energy will start to enter the picture into Louisiana once again. And here comes another round of heavy rain moving onshore from the Gulf of Mexico into southern Mississippi, southern Alabama, and southeast Louisiana as we get into tomorrow morning, tomorrow afternoon. But we won't get too much into our Friday on this section of the video. But rainfall between now and Friday morning, tomorrow morning, another couple inches of rain expected in this area. But you extend it all the way out into Saturday morning. And here comes more rain. Between now and the next 48 hours, folks, another 2 to 3 inches of rain is possible around Baton Rouge, New Orleans, Lake Charles region to Jackson, all the way up into Birmingham. 1 to 2 inches of rain. Atlanta could see over 2 inches of rain from this. Nashville, close to an inch. So if we look at the updraft Felicity swath for today's severe weather threat, it does like this area right through the heart of Mississippi and especially central to northern Alabama. And this just indicates on this specific run, the HRRR model, where it likes the best chance for rotating updrafts, rotating thunderstorms. That doesn't necessarily mean there's going to be a tornado. It just means they could be rotating. So a lot of storms rotate, and a lot of storms never drop a tornado. So just be aware of this. If your area, your county, your area just gets under a tornado warning, take it serious. Take it serious for sure. This morning, HRRR model verifying pretty darn well with what's going on right now. We got rain falling across, even some light shower activity from Baltimore all the way up through Philadelphia, New York City, Boston. I think that this will head out. We'll get a little bit of a break this afternoon. I don't think that break will last long, but it will last all the way into this evening. Maybe some more light rain kind of getting going here around Long Island, southern sections of Connecticut and Rhode Island, southern New England. And then here comes another push of moisture. And this starts to affect D.C. later this evening, affect the entire state of West Virginia. We got rain moving through Ohio, all rain for Pennsylvania. This is all rain for the southern tier of New York later tonight. Maybe some areas of heavy rain also into like New York City, southern New England. And I didn't realize my cat was right beside me, but here she is. And you keep this going, and as we're waking up Friday morning, there's still just enough cold air locked in place up here into New Hampshire, portions of Vermont, and Maine to, you're waking up to more rain in Boston, southern New England, all rain. But then as you start to get into about tomorrow afternoon, you start to get a winter weather event. I think this will prompt some winter weather advisories that will probably be issued a little bit later today. But with a low cutting across the Adirondacks, it's certainly going to be a warmer system for sure. High pressure might force this a little bit more east to west. But definitely a light to moderate snow event across Maine. I think southern sections of Maine might actually go to rain at some point. And this could certainly just deliver just kind of a snowy scenario for our Friday up here. Precipitation in general, nothing too bad. No flooding risk with this, I don't think. Nobody's even calling for an inch of rain. Most of it's, below an inch. But, you look at snowfall totals between now and Saturday morning, and it's still snowing in some of these areas. A few to several inches of heavy wet snow could fall in the heart of Maine. And then maybe a couple inches of snow in northern Vermont, northern New Hampshire, especially these higher elevated regions. So the south central U.S., it'll get more quiet today. Most of the rain heads out, but you'll still deal with another rainy morning across Arkansas, especially northern Arkansas. Some light to moderate rain overspreads just about the entire state of Missouri throughout the afternoon hours into St. Louis. Rain starts to move into the Midwest, and we'll talk about this low starting to develop again here in the Ohio Valley in the Midwest here in a second. But as we get into this evening, into the overnight hours, really the only thing to speak on is some snow and rain showers sort of dancing around out here in the southern Rockies and New Mexico and sections. I mean, we could definitely get some snow in the kind of along the Front Range region of Colorado. South of Denver could get a little bit of light snowfall accumulations from this. But as we're getting into a Friday morning, the beginning stages of another system get going, and this system right here could be more of a high-impact system. And we'll speak on that here in a second. This will be the same system starting right here Friday afternoon that's going to deliver a severe weather threat for our Saturday across the Deep South and a winter storm risk later this weekend for the Northeast. Starting this morning for the north central U.S., it's pretty quiet for the most part. Maybe some freezing drizzle out there, some light sprinkles. But we're getting into this afternoon. Some rain begins to overspread. Of course, I've already mentioned Missouri starts to overspread Illinois, central and eastern Iowa. You're just getting rain in the heart of winter, but here we are. And then look at this low cutting right through Indiana. Could be some heavy rain associated with it. Maybe some gusty winds around, Indianapolis later this afternoon, this evening. Rain starts to overspread into Chicago. Some light rain all the way up into central and northern areas of Wisconsin. And then some moderate rain starts to make its way into the overnight hours into southern sections of Michigan. And then we start to get into like the wee hours of the morning. Now, I'll show you here in a second. There's no snow forecast for areas of Michigan. But the HRRR model likes a little bit of snow, winter weather, falling on the northern side of this precipitation. We'll see if this happens. If it does, it could, dump a surprise, maybe a couple inches of snow that's maybe not forecast. We'll see what happens. If you live way up here in this section right here in lower Michigan, we'll see what happens with that. All right. But if you talk about precipitation between now and Saturday morning, just in general, in the blue, anywhere from a ½ inch to close to 3/4 of an inch of rain. You talk about snow, right? Just don't come down here. They're not forecasting anything from that area I just showed you. A little bit of a dusting up here. But so we'll see if that changes. It's not a big deal one way or the other, but definitely want to mention it. The western U.S., scattered showers on lower elevations, scattered burst of heavier snow in the higher elevations. Kind of a common theme out here, nothing really unusual really at all. Snow flying around across the central Rockies, some heavy snow possible in northern Arizona, those higher elevations in Utah, Nevada, and Idaho. So we'll continue to see this, and this is kind of the beginnings of our system that, like I said, will create more of a big-time system across the eastern U.S. But, there's not a whole lot going on today. Another system does move into the picture, just your typical system after system kind of set up across the western U.S., and we'll be dealing with some rain tomorrow morning, tomorrow early afternoon across the Pacific Northwest and Northern California. Snowfall between now and the next 24 hours. You can see how these systems are kind of cutting down the Rockies right into here. Just delivering higher elevation snow. Nothing too crazy. Nothing like super ridiculous high amounts of snow. This is typical kind of Rockies and Cascades kind of stuff out here, but certainly will continue to add to the snowpack. Relatively warm system out here. Speaking of warm, temperatures will be well above average for the southeast as we continue to get in this torch pattern. I can tell you, it was forecast to get into the 70s yesterday in Columbia. It stayed at 64 degrees, 65 degrees all day. So, a good chunk of Florida does get into the low 80s, especially the peninsula of Florida. I mean, it's going to be downright warm if you're picking, late January to take a vacation to Florida. I mean, it's going to feel like kind of like summer in Florida today. 70s into the Carolinas. 60s all the way into D.C., well above average for the Northeast, even though technically this would be below average for the Southeast. This is well above average for the Northeast. You might get into the 50s around NYC. You're definitely getting a chilly rain that, I just mentioned for the north central U.S., but it's still above freezing, well above average. Everybody you see on this map is above average temperature-wise, including out west. There might be some areas that are below average, but in general, the common theme out here is above average temperatures. So let's move and let's skip Friday for the most part. We kind of talked about Friday in some of those panels. Let's talk about Saturday. We're not going to get super detailed on this. We'll do it again tonight. But they have pushed this into day 3 from day 4 that we spoke on yesterday evening. We have a slight risk. It's a little baby slight risk. It includes areas of Montgomery is included in this. Goes all the way to southern Alabama, almost all the way to Atlanta. But it's actually shrunk from the original 15% risk. So right now, there's just day 3. There is just that slight risk. Level 2 out of 5. Nothing's really changed. It's actually gotten smaller. So we'll have to see if this kind of just goes away in general. We'll have to watch this, but there is ingredients there to support severe weather. And as of right now on day 3, all we know is that there's just a 15% risk of severe weather. And this is really being driven off this. I'll show you this. We'll start off Friday evening. Bang, there goes our system. This is part of the system, but this is a low that gets going off this upper trough energy right in here. Low flies up on sort of the eastern base of this trough, a surface low, and here it is Saturday morning, and I would argue that this low is going to be up here, not down here. Just a little feedback issue right here. It's kind of weird how it goes like almost east southeast. That's odd. That's not what it's going to do, but who knows, maybe it will. But in general, we expect this low to sort of go like this. Therefore, everybody on the eastern southeastern flank of this low, that's going to get some southerly flow into this region, higher moisture levels, and then you're probably going to have a wind field associated with this surface low, just like you typically do. Therefore, it's going to bring severe weather into this area, and that's the low that's bringing this right here. This is the same low that's going to continue to ride into the northeast, and then might get forced out into the ocean by a high pressure. So we'll have to watch for that. We'll get detailed again on that tonight for you folks living in Alabama and Georgia. I don't think this is going to be a severe weather outbreak by any means, but it's certainly something we need to watch. You never know when these are going to uptrend. Let's talk about the European as far as this winter storm threat. So this is the same system right here. It's just a different way of looking at it, a different weather site. So we'll start off Saturday afternoon, and we'll take a look at the latest model guidance. I want to first off say that I don't anticipate this to be some huge snowstorm. But there's definitely a winter storm risk with this, for sure. But you keep going, and you get into Sunday evening. You're starting to get into, Saturday evening. You're starting to get into Saturday night into Sunday morning. And then we take it all the way to about mid-morning Sunday morning. A little bit of rain switching to snow here in areas of Ohio, Kentucky. We got some snow beginning to break out across the northern sections of PA, southern tier of New York. And you keep this going. You see how the low sort of looks like it's about to cut? Looks like there's a little bit of a transfer, or it gets basically pushed off the coast of the Northeast. So looks like there's a lot of temperature issues initially with this. It looks like you just got mainly snow in here. I know it shows like green right in here, but this is most likely all snow. You keep going. This is Sunday afternoon, and you take it all the way to Sunday evening. Two things going on here. Because there could be two pieces of energy to try to catch up. One piece of energy behind this that tries to catch up with the main energy. You got a low pressure that's beginning to drop in millibars. It's getting stronger. Okay? This is going to throw back heavier precipitation into the cold side of the system. So you stop it here and you got snow. I would argue that this green over Boston's probably snow. You got snow starting to move into southern New England. You got snow very close, looking like mainly rain for New York City, but it could turn to snow. I think it could in this setup. You got snow falling across the Appalachian Mountains with some northwest flow event with cold air catching up. And you keep this going, folks. And you go I mean, we take it to the middle of the night, Sunday night. This is some very heavy snow falling a couple hours north of New York City into sections of southern New England. And like I said, I do think that this would have a good chance to be snow around Boston. We'll have to see. And then we go all the way to like Monday morning, and it's a pretty decent snowstorm across southern New England. And we have to do watch to see if this trends northward. What does this low do? If it kind of goes more like this, then you're going to get more snow into Maine and further into the interior sections of the Northeast. We'll have to watch our friends here in Canada too. We keep watching this. Do we get some kind of secondary low here? I don't know. We'll have to watch. But this gets a sub 990 millibar low and really thumps southern New England with some heavy wet snow as this is pulling away Monday morning. I mean, heavy snow, accumulating snow for sure. And then look, as you get into Monday afternoon, it is snowing pretty good right in here. Really heavy snow. And then this heads on out. Okay. What about the GFS? Remember the GFS, if you watch yesterday evening's video and watch this portion of it, it was a little bit of a weaker scenario. This moves in. This is still different. Sunday morning, you got a stripe of heavy wet snow into sections of Ohio, Cleveland, western Ohio, even some snow all the way back in northern Kentucky. Snow falling at a pretty heavy clip here in northern PA, starting to get into the southern tier of New York. And you continue to keep this going. We took it all the way to Sunday afternoon. The first thing I want you to notice is, if you compare this Sunday afternoon with the European Sunday afternoon, it's a little bit different. It looks colder to me. Okay, compare this with this. And it's a weaker system and it's a colder system. Typically, you got a more amped up system. Sometimes it could bring more warm air into it. But we'll see. And it's not that it brings more warm air into it. It's typically a stronger system, just tries to go further north. Therefore, the further north these systems can go, yeah, it's going to bring more precipitation, but you're going to risk getting warm-nosed and just warmer air mixing to the surface. So that's really the issue if you're a winter weather fan. Sunday afternoon, you got snow overspreading into southern New England. We got heavy snow all the way down into the mid-Atlantic regions. Look at this area of heavy snow in the southern sections of Pennsylvania. And I'm telling you, the GFS likes the idea of almost a secondary area of energy right in here. So you kind of got this area of moderate snow here and this area of moderate to heavy snow trying to crash down to southeast PA into the northern sections of the Delmarva region, even into New Jersey. This brings snow into New Jersey, Philadelphia, northern Delaware, and then it heads on out by the time you get into Monday night. It's a very interesting scenario there. But we look at snowfall accumulations, and this is not a forecast. What you're seeing right here is what could happen between now and about Sunday morning. A totally different system, right? So ignore this area. But we start to move the system we just broke down to the picture, and here it is. Look at the accumulations adding up, and that's what it looks like. Okay, this wants to dump 10 inches of snow in Boston. Doesn't hardly give anything for New York City. Southern New England, just about an 8 to 12 inch snowfall event. Lower amounts closer to the coast. And it doesn't really do much for the mid-Atlantic. It does like northeast, Scranton, northeast PA, the Poconos, the Catskills, the Berkshires. But you notice it doesn't bring any substantial snowfall accumulations up into Maine. Delmarva region, mid-Atlantic, doesn't get much at all from this. Some northwest flow action, but that's about it. Okay. What about the GFS? Same thing. This is from the system between now and about Saturday or Sunday morning. And then here comes our next system. Notice the snow totals aren't as crazy as the Euro. And remember, it's because the Euro has a stronger storm system, throwing back more heavier precipitation, but it's stronger, so it's a little bit further north. Okay, GFS, it's a colder scenario because it's a weaker system. The system is being influenced a little bit more by just steering currents from high pressure, and it's being pushed a little bit further south, so it's allowing for cold air to work in a little bit more to the north, but not as robust snowfall totals, but still a pretty decent event. It brings accumulations for almost everybody in New Jersey, New York City, areas of Long Island, southern New England, but definitely not that crazy. I wouldn't call it crazy, but definitely not a significant snowstorm like the Euro shows. But it does want to throw more heavier snow back into sections of, even into the Ohio Valley. And not to leave you folks hanging in sections of the Ohio Valley. And let's just kind of look at this. But this is what it's showing back here into Ohio with the GFS and areas of Indiana. Not a whole lot, but there it is. So we need to continue to figure this one out. All right. That's going to be difficult enough to figure out. We've kind of been eyeballing this system for a few days now, right? And it's honestly looking like it's going to be, a pretty worthy system, honestly. I mean, it's not going to be one of those nor'easters that drop 1 to 2 feet or 2 to 3 feet, I don't think. But someone could get a foot of snow off this, which is pretty significant. What about after that? This is when things get weird. And I want to tell you guys, please, I'm going to show you the GFS run. Please, please, please. And this goes out to all my gullible people, and that's not a knock on you folks. I mean, some people, you can be gullible, but, don't be gullible to the point where you tell everybody and your dog that it's going to snow 15 days from now. Please don't do that, because, you might be joking, but they might actually believe you. And then that's when information spreads like a wildfire. And part of what I do here is, I talk about weather. I'll show you a scenario, and then I'll give you my take on it, and if it fits the pattern. So, with that being said, let me stop yapping my jaw here. But we keep this going. We're getting into, the last 2 days of January. That big system heads on out that we just broke down, and then we have a trough kind of over, eastern Canada and the Northeast. You can tell by looking at the 540 line, the blue lines. You can tell there's some colder air over the Northeast Mid-Atlantic. And you still got a ridge built over all the way up into central Canada. Then you got like this clipper energy. And we talked about what's going to happen with this. But this ridge, you got energy that's just going to continue to sort of fly down into here. All right, and then kind of move out like that. So until this moves on out or does whatever it's going to do, we're going to continue to get these little feeder energy pieces that are going to kind of come down, right? So this is going to get into next Tuesday morning. Here comes another little piece of energy. Not a whole lot of cold air to work with, but this could bring some chilly rain showers as far south as the Carolinas and a little bit of snow. We have to watch these little pieces of energy. Okay, that's getting into the 31st. Here comes another one. But you can tell this looks like a more robust piece of energy. You can tell by the 540 line and how it bulges out like that. So this dives down. The latest run of the Euro doesn't do much. At the same time, energy out west starts to get hyper. And I think this is no doubt going to happen. And I think that, I know I don't have as many people out west that tune in, but I think we will be talking about the western U.S. a good bit over the next probably especially in the next few days, because I think we're going to get some pretty powerful storm systems out west. So we're going to watch this energy as it continues to sweep in. It's going to try to link up with something down here. But you keep this going, and this tries to do something right in here, like next weekend. But look how far out we are. Way too far out to really talk in confidence in this. But I do like the way it's setting up. You got cold high up here. You got troughing kind of over the Atlantic Canada region, northeast. And we got a lot of energy starting to fly down out of the Pacific. Basically, your southern strain's about starting to get excited down here. Got a little bit of a cold air feed up here. What happens? We only can go 240 hours out. But at the very last frame, it's very intriguing on the Euro. This goes all the way out to about the evening of the 3rd of February. I know that's pretty far out, right? You got a pretty strong low pressure here. And my initial thought is this is probably going to cut because it's so strong. We'll see. But pretty substantial snow event going on in New Mexico, not a forecast, western Texas. You still got this consistent troughing over areas of the Northeast and just cold high. Anything that continues to fly through here, if you can maintain I would say more like that. If you can maintain some kind of cold air feed here, you're going to end up getting some kind of cold air damming event right into here. I'll show you a little bit more what that looks like here in a second. But that's the last frame of the European. GFS, here it comes. All right, please don't allow this. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and tell you not to get excited. When I see this stuff, I'd be a hypocrite if I told you it doesn't excite me, because it still does. I'll be 80 years old, and it's showing a winter storm over my house 300-something hours out will never not excite me. It just always does. It makes me smile. It really does. And I can tell you, and I will tell you this before I do this. I know some people's like, Mitch, just get on with it. I got to get to work. The GFS has been very stingy lately with showing fantasy runs. If you're thinking, what is a fantasy run? It's when we see like a winter storm on the GFS run, like past 10 days out, which is 240 hours out plus. It's been very stingy with them. And to me, that just kind of goes to the testimony that I think the GFS has improved as a model in general. So we don't see it as much, which is, kind of disappointing in a way, but in another way, you like that, because if it does start to show it, then maybe it's sniffing out a pattern. So you keep this going, and there's that energy kind of dropping down that we talked about. This is the time frame getting into the, next Tuesday into the 31st. And, it evolves it a lot differently than the European, but it does throw a pretty cold system, northern stream system, pretty strong northern stream system, right down into the northeast. And this feeds cold air into this also. All right. Now, I want to tell you, this GFS run is a lot different than the last 3 or 4 ones. So we could turn around and flip it right back again for the lunchtime. In fact, I would bet we do. But it's going to take some time for this to figure it out. Well, we're getting close enough to this time frame. This is only 6-7 days out to really figure out that, hey, something weird's going to happen probably next week sometime. And then the week after, it could get even more weird. But there's winter weather flying around across areas of kind of the eastern Ohio Valley, the interior mid-Atlantic, and the Northeast. We'll see what that does. Can that evolve into a bigger system sort of mid to late next week? But you see these blue lines all congealed together. That's a decent shot of cold air, and it shows it the same way as the Euro does. Shot of cold air down to into the Northeast. I mean, all the way back into the Great Lakes region with this. And you see this blue starting to show up right here. There's a piece of energy diving down. And, does it really get its act together? Well, it turns into a snow event for areas of the upper Midwest. And at the same time, you got this energy trying to dump a snowstorm over the extreme northeast sections of New England. What happens after that? Okay, here comes a system right here, bubbling up. All right, if you stop it right here, man, there's a lot of energy out west. A lot of energy out west. You got another high up here. You're going to see a lot of H's. Where's the cold air? Right, 540 line. Remember, we don't live at 540 up. We 540, think of that as like the freezing line in the upper levels of the atmosphere. Okay, we don't look at it the freezing line at the surface, and we'll explain that a different day. I've explained it before, but we'll pass on that for now. 997 millibar low, pretty juiced up Gulf low down here. All right, this kind of moves in. Is there enough cold air in place? There is, just enough. I'm not buying this system. I'm not. I'm really not. I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer, but here it is. We're starting to get. Look at the time frame. This is just after 10 days out. And there it is. First off, you got a lot of energy over, the upper portion of the country. But look at this. Dumps a heavy, wet snowstorm over North Carolina. And one thing I want you to notice with this system, I'm going to get a little bit closer to it. Notice how it does this number right here. See how it's doing like that? And it's only affecting those areas. You're thinking, why is it raining back in Tennessee, like North Georgia? This is a classic cold air damming setup. It's showing an H over here, but it very well could be over here. There's just enough cold air funneling east of this line right here I just drew. Think of that as the Appalachian Mountains, even though that's not exactly where it is. But think of this area I just drew. That's cold air getting trapped east of the mountains, kind of funneling down. And not just it's just trapped, but your cold air source is in the northeast. So this is feeding. So this isn't going to support winter weather, into Tennessee if this was to happen. But you got a beautiful low pressure track right in here. Right? And guys, this is not a forecast. It's not a forecast. I'm just showing you the setup of a cold air damming setup and how it's starting to show up in models, especially the ensembles, a lot more. But, turns into, on this particular one, a pretty nice winter storm. And this is the storm that everybody is looking for in the Carolinas, Virginia, etc. Then it drops another piece of energy. It's just, I called it this morning, the GFS was dropping haymakers, because it is. I mean, it just all of a sudden, it's like it's woke up and it's like, hey, winter's back. Is it? We don't know. I think it's coming back. I just don't know if it's going to come back this quick into early February. My time period was always mid-February. But who knows? Weather's going to do what it's going to do, right? And then it drops another winter storm over the same areas a couple days later, right? Another one. And you're thinking, man, what else are we going to get? Then we start to get like, and guys, we're way out at this point. We're way past 300 hours out. But then it brings the winter storm that where I started in South Carolina, have been waiting for. We can order the pizza. We can hop on our roofs in excitement. If you don't know, you're thinking, Mitch, what are you talking about? If you follow me on social media, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And this would be the storm that would make everybody's winter. This brings your classic setup. Yes, I mean, it does miss Birmingham, but we can't get excited about this. We can't frown upon this. We can't get too excited about this. It does make us smile seeing this. But this is an example, 372 hours out, of what we want to see. Cold air source coming in. It's just cold enough for snow. It's snowing heavily from Atlanta to Columbia to Charlotte, Greenville, Spartanburg. It does, change the ice, but who cares? I mean, we're not going to get so specific on this. But that's the system right at the end that we're all looking for, that we all are hoping for. And I'm not even going to lie. I've even been praying for it. I know some people are like, Mitch, don't pray for snow. It's not very important. And I would agree to you somewhat. I don't typically pray for stuff like that, but I found myself over the last couple nights just saying a little prayer like, God, it would be cool if we can get some snow. If we could have it happen, that would be awesome. If not going to be disappointed. But, guys, I'm a big snow fan. But we look at the European ensemble and to see what supports this, folks. And I did not anticipate talking this long on this, but here we are. And we talk about what supports this. And what we do know is that once we get past about 240 hours out, 10 days out, we see high pressure up here, and we see a solid signal for some sort of low right over here. And if we keep this going, you can see the isobars kind of bulging like this. You can see them like that. That is a cold air damming setup right here with some kind of low. You see the blue, think of that as lower pressure. Okay, with some kind of low down here, moving down here. That is a weak signal, but I mean, 11, 12, 13 days out, you don't expect it to be some huge signal. You really don't. And you can see another low coming in. It's about to get the energy is about to get flowing. It is. Where is our cold air going to be? We got to figure that one out. That's all I got, guys. Did not think I was going to talk that long on it, but just the passion started oozing through, and there we are. So God bless all y'all. Have a great day, and we'll certainly do it again this evening.